Our purpose is to care for patients, their families, and one another. This can only happen with purpose and clear direction. We can change lives for the better, each person and every experience. Welcome to the Ardent Service Excellence Podcast. I'm Paul Kappelman, Ardent's Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer. This podcast was created to keep you and your teams informed, inspired, and invigorated. And here for our Connect to Purpose is CEO of Loveless UNM Rehabilitation Hospital, Derek Jones.
So one of the things that we do at our hospital is for every patient, we do a discharge parade. And line up in the front of the hospital, clap the patients out, seeing people that we weren't sure if they're going to make it, if they're ever going to walk again, if they're ever going to talk again. We stop and drop whatever we're doing in the day to go celebrate our patients' success. And one of the last things that I do is I thank them for allowing us to take care of them. If they need anything going forward, to please call us. We see many of them will cry, many of them are very, very happy. They're definitely all surprised that it's going to happen, and it's something that we found that our employees really like, and certainly it helps inspire us as leaders.
With me, we have Michael Cruz, BSA Health Systems COO, and he joins us to talk about creating a culture of service excellence and some of the work they've done with purpose and training. Michael's been an integral part of our steering committee since the very beginning, and I thought it would be great if he could share some of his insights with us today. So welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
One of the things that you talked about the most when we started our journey is the importance of purpose and connecting to your purpose before you really got into the details of training. Wonder if you could just speak for a minute about how you carry that out at BSA and why you thought that was so important when we started our journey.
I think purpose is at the heart of all we do, and most importantly, of what we do at work. And without purpose, without understanding your why, it's almost impossible to have a sustainable energy towards what you do. A few years after I started working at BSA, I was put in charge of our patient experience here, and one of my missteps was really trying to demonstrate to folks the what of how we needed to do things and what we needed to do to create a patient experience. And I failed to really start at the beginning, which is until you understand your why, you don't know the horsepower that purpose really has. Since then, we've reframed a lot of what we do here at BSA in terms of our training and customer service modules. And at the heart of all of that is purpose, really understanding why are you in healthcare? What prompted you to be a nurse or a phlebotomist? And typically, it's a very personal experience. It's I had a grandmother or I had a loved one that was in the hospital. And when you talk through that, they very quickly connect to, and that's why I feel called to this work. And I think that's where so many great things begin to happen, by really coming back to purpose and understanding your why.
That's great. As we went through our journey of figuring out what we were going to do Ardent-wide and developing the Ardent-wide customer service journey, that message came through loud and clear, and why we determined to purpose part of our training. But then we moved right into some of the nuts and bolts of, okay, customer service is really a skill, and first we got to connect your heart, but then we got to give you tools and techniques. Could you just talk about some of those tools and techniques and why you think training is so important?
Training ultimately is critical for any success. And the reason is, even with the best of intentions, with the most sincere purpose in your heart, it's difficult for us as caregivers, as leaders, to do an extraordinary job if we haven't put rigor and discipline and then validated the training to accomplish those ends. And I think one of the things that we've done here at BSA is connected those dots of understanding, okay, once you understand your purpose, that's fantastic. That's mission critical. But now let's give you some tools, some resources, and really validate that the training and the aspect at which you're carrying out patient experience and patient interactions are the right ones. Because ultimately, there are a number of institutions out there that do a great job, and there's no need to reinvent the wheel, but there's a lot of value in making sure that we're going through a training regimen and really with the same rigor that you'd go through CPR training or any kind of clinical training, because it's that important to the ultimate result, which is the patient experience.
That's great. I mentioned earlier that Michael was one of the founding members of the executive steering committee for Ardent, and that really was the group that determined how we were going to roll this out. I appreciate Michael's support of that and involvement. Has been an active participant. Michael, can you just talk a little bit about that steering committee and what it's done and what it's meant to you?
Yeah, it's been an awesome honor to be on that executive steering committee, and effectively what I feel it's done is empowered the leaders to really set the agenda of what is patient experience, what does service excellence look like for Ardent. And the beauty of that is that it's called leaders from all across the organization. We meet together, we dialogue, we debate, we argue, and ultimately I think we come up with a way to do things that makes sense, that still gives markets their individuality, and yet creates a standardization across Ardent, which ultimately is what we need to go forward and to really make this scalable to the degree that we want to.
Let's talk a little bit about BSA. BSA is known for its great customer service and its great patient experience and just a unique culture. And it's evident from the time you walk in the door. Can you share just some of the secrets and tips that you've learned along the way that creates that great culture?
I think so much of it is we've got a great CEO, Bob Williams, does an amazing job of making sure that everyone understands without creating an amazing experience for our patients, some of which have no interest in being here. We are going to be relegated to a time frame where we're going to be non-existent. So it's so important that patient experience be at the center of it. I think the clinical leaders, the non-clinical leaders all buy into that. And as a result, I think it creates this magnetism for other leaders who say, hey, I want to be in an environment where patient comes first, where people value and recognize the hard work that I do, that it's not just the aptitude of doing something, but the attitude. And so, how we make it come to reality is the big things and the little things. Little things like, several years ago, we had a construction project, and we saw that folks were having difficulty wayfinding. As a leadership group, we came together and said, let's put leaders at the front door, just helping folks. And obviously, there was a lot of hemming and hawing about, we've got really important meetings and really big things on the strategy agenda. But what we collectively said is ultimately, without the patients, we're out of business. The first thing we do is every leader that's a part of our organization spends at least 2 hours working the front door, taking folks wherever they need to go. We really try and make a mantra of don't point, walk them where they need to go. And it's a small thing, but if you're coming into a 1 million square foot facility and all you're trying to do is find the ED to find your wife or to go to day surgery to understand how your daughter's doing from day surgery, you don't want to navigate 1 million square feet. You just want to know how your loved one's doing. And so little things like that kind of peppered throughout the organization are what we try and do to make sure everyone understands this is what we're about. This is the BSA way.
Definitely noticeable when you walk in the doors and when you walk throughout the environment. The final question I have for you is just a little bit about 2019 and the steering committee and your agenda at BSA, your personal agenda, and the Ardent steering committee agenda for 2019. What does it look like?
I think what 2018 was really building blocks and putting things together and really the pieces that are going to make us successful. What I find 2019 is going to be about is really doubling down on all those building blocks. I mean, we've got some fantastic training and resources in place. We know the right things that are going to move the needle, purposeful hourly rounding, bedside shift report, customer training, all of those aspects that are going to be so important. So 2019 is really the year to fine-tune, make it better than what we've done before without necessarily adding a lot of mixture to the pot. And I think by doing that, we'll really ingrain this into our culture even more than I feel like it already has started to happen already.
Well said. Thank you, Michael, for your great words, your great sharing, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Paul.
Thank you to our guests who joined us today and shared their stories and insights. And thank you for listening. Ardent Service Excellence was designed for each and every one of us. We all have the power to make a difference and impact lives. Let's stay connected to our purpose of caring for others, our patients, their families, and one another.